Now to some breaking news from overseas. A deadly terror attack near one of Jerusalem's holy sites. Dramatic footage there you're looking at showing the shootout with police. And ABC's James Longman has all the details for us this morning. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Amy. Yes, 2 Israeli policemen were killed in East Jerusalem this morning. They were attacked by 3 Palestinians who then fled the scene. Take a look at this dramatic cell phone footage. It shows one of the attackers fighting with Israeli security before being shot. The attackers were shot dead by police inside the holy compound, which is known to Muslims as Haram al-Sharif and to Jews as Temple Mount. The 3 assailants were killed at one of the holiest sites in the world and one of the most politically sensitive. The attack happened just before Friday prayers, which have now been cancelled. That hasn't happened, we believe, since 1990, which has made the whole situation all the more tense. Incidents around Haram al-Sharif have stirred up Palestinian rage in the past, but authorities on both sides are doing their best to keep things calm.
Vicious situation at one of the holiest sites, holiest religious sites in the world. Now, right now, just to set the scene for you, we're standing outside Damascus Gate, the Damascus Gate entrance to the old city. Police have shut it down. They're only allowing a limited amount of people, certain people who live within the city, tourists that are staying there inside. Not only is the gate shut down, but David, if you follow me over here, my photographer, they've shut down the whole area. They've barricaded off the streets. This is very unusual. It's not often that happens. Not only that, but all the other entrances have been shut down as well, including the Lions Gate entrance, where the attack happened around 7:30 this morning.
Some breaking news just into us here at CNN. This news coming from Egypt and North Africa. Security forces have arrested a man who attacked 6 female tourists with a knife on a Red Sea beach resort, the resort of Hurghada, very popular with tourists, particularly from Europe and from Russia. The Interior Ministry says the 6 injured tourists are now being treated in a hospital. An early investigation shows the attacker infiltrated the beach area of a hotel by swimming in from a nearby public beach. That is the latest information we have on this developing story. 6 female tourists of different nationalities attacked on a beach in Egypt, and they are all being treated in hospital for their injuries.
2 teenagers have been arrested in London following a series of acid attacks. The suspects, aged 15 and 16, are in custody at a North London police station. They were arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm and robbery. A statement from London Police said 5 men were attacked within the space of 90 minutes on Thursday, July 13th. The victims reportedly had acid thrown on their faces, and 2 of them also had their moped stolen in the process. All of the victims were taken to hospital, and according to the London Police, at least one of the victims has injuries which are, quote, life-changing. Acid attacks in London have arisen dramatically over the last few years, with over 450 incidents in 2016. The head of London Police told The Telegraph on Friday the force is working with the government to potentially change the laws regarding buying or carrying acid.
China is closely watching a recent U.S. missile test. A U.S. official has told Fox News the Chinese spy ship was only 100 miles from Kodiak, Alaska. That's where our military launched an anti-ballistic missile earlier this week. It was the first of its kind to be seen in those waters, and although spy ships from China are no stranger to the coastline, China sent 5 ships over when President Obama visited the state in 2015. The USS Arleigh Burke warship was also recently followed by a Chinese spy ship at sea.
In other news, China has sent its Shan H-6 strategic bombers near Taiwan and Japan. They were sent on Thursday. It was part of a drill in the Western Pacific near Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone and the Miyako Strait south of Japan's Okinawa. This resulted in Japan reportedly carrying out a scramble order, but things didn't escalate as the Chinese jets didn't enter Japanese airspace.
On Friday, images were released of North Korea's main nuclear site. The images revealed Pyongyang could have a larger stockpile of plutonium than had been previously estimated. It is widely believed that the plutonium supply in question could be used to enlarge North Korea's weapons supply. A Washington-based group, 38 North, had been keeping watch over the site since September by way of satellite images from a radiochemical laboratory at the Yongbyon nuclear plant. According to Reuters, officials and experts say that despite the U.S. strongly advising North Korea to stand down on testing efforts, this new discovery could mean a 6th test is on the way in coming weeks.
On Friday, North Korea said that it would take corresponding measures if the UN Security Council adopts additional sanctions in response to Pyongyang's test launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile last week. According to a statement by North Korea's foreign ministry, the ICBM test was an exercise of its legitimate right to self-defense against nuclear threat from the United States. The United States has been looking for the support of China and Russia in order to push the UN Security Council to impose stiffer sanctions on North Korea following its latest missile test.
Ever since his election victory, Donald Trump's faced media allegations that Vladimir Putin was responsible for putting him in the White House. But now the president has raised more than a few eyebrows after claiming the Russian leader would have preferred Hillary Clinton. RT's Jacqueline Vuga has the details.
The media firestorm continues to circle around allegations of collusion between Russia and Team Trump. The president says that his America First policy actually makes him a less desirable U.S. president than Hillary Clinton, or at least in Russia's eyes.
He would like Hillary, where she wants to have windmills, okay? Yeah. He would much rather have that because energy prices will go up, and Russia, as you know, relies very much on energy. So there are many things that I do that are the exact opposite of what he would want. So when I keep hearing about that he would have rather had Trump, I think probably not.
Trump also went on to say that if Hillary had been elected, the U.S. military would be, quote, decimated. But with him at the reins, the U.S. military will only grow stronger, something Trump believes Putin does not want. Now, Putin's spokesperson did respond to those comments, simply stating that Russia's main interest is improving bilateral relations with whoever holds the office of president.
We want the leaders of foreign countries to have a positive approach to future relations with Russia. We welcome everyone with that same position. But again, Russia has never interfered, is not interfering, and is not going to interfere in other countries' internal affairs. A country's leadership is not elected because of someone's influence, but by the people who live in that country.
On Friday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed its version of a massive annual defense bill, leaving out controversial topics on transgender troops and climate policy. The National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, sets military policy and authorizes up to $696 billion in spending for the Department of Defense. It faces more hurdles before it can become law, mostly because it would increase military spending beyond last year's $619 billion bill. This defies sequestrian caps on government spending set in the 2011 Budget Control Act.
The Pentagon said on Friday that the head of Islamic State in Afghanistan, Abu Sayyad, was killed in a strike on the group's headquarters in Kunar province earlier this week. In a statement, a Pentagon spokeswoman said a raid on Tuesday had killed other Islamic State members and would significantly disrupt the terror group's plans to expand its presence in Afghanistan. The terrorist group recently seized a new stronghold in Tora Bora on Thursday.
A Philippine airstrike in Marawi City accidentally killed 2 Philippine soldiers. Armed Forces of the Philippines spokesman, Colonel Edgar Arevalo, said the airstrike missed its target by about 250 meters on Wednesday, July 12. 11 others were injured as well. Arevalo said the airstrike caused a building to collapse and that the falling debris is what killed the 2 victims. Arevalo said, quote, "We are saddened by this unfortunate incident. The Philippine military has been fighting the ISIS-linked Maute group in Marawi City since May 23rd. President Rodrigo Duterte declared martial law on the island of Mindanao after the militants seized Marawi. The latest government estimates are that the conflict has killed 389 militants, 90 Philippine security forces, and 39 civilians. Hundreds of thousands of civilians have been forced to flee Marawi City as well. An investigation into Wednesday's botched airstrike is underway. The Malaysian state of Kelantan is now allowing public canings under Islamic law. The Kelantan State Assembly passed a bill amending Islamic law on July 12. In Malaysia, states can independently administer Islamic law, which covers family matters and Sharia crimes for Muslims. However, Reuters reports some ethnic Chinese and Indian minorities are concerned by efforts to implement stricter Sharia law. Kelantan State Assembly is controlled by the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party, known for its hardline stance and trying to institute Islamic law. Kelantan's Deputy Chief Minister said the decision to make caning public is in line with Islam, which he says requires the punishment to be public. According to the Star Online, the new law also allows religious enforcement officers to handcuff suspects. It was not announced what crimes would be punishable by caning, but Reuters reports it will likely include adultery.
The graffiti reads, "Because of these, the word Jew is an insult." Anti-immigration posters in Hungary featuring the face of Jewish billionaire philanthropist George Soros have sparked allegations of anti-Semitism. Now the Hungarian government says the 6-week campaign, which features Soros's smiling face and the words, "Don't let Soros have the last laugh," will finish at the weekend. But Prime Minister Viktor Orban's chief of staff denied the posters are anti-Semitic.
I think what makes a good billboard is that it draws attention to some danger. The danger is not George Soros himself, but what he represents in the case of immigration. Our problem with George Soros is not that he is of Jewish origin. I categorically deny and refute this. The government has never ever had such intention or thought and never will have.
Has made me the target of his unrelenting propaganda campaign.
The right-wing Hungarian government has long been at odds with Soros, who funds open democracy organisations and supports more open immigration. Soros said earlier this week that the billboards are reminiscent of Europe's darkest hours. Criticism as well from former UN Chief Kofi Annan and Israel's foreign ambassador, who said the campaign sows hatred and fear. But the Israeli Foreign Ministry later issued a clarification, contradicting their ambassador and saying that Soros was a legitimate target for criticism. That move appeared to be designed to align Israel more closely with Hungary ahead of a visit to Budapest by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu next week.
More than 1,400 migrants were taken to Italy on Friday after several rescue operations in the Mediterranean. The arrival of the 1,400 migrants comes as the Italian government draws up a draft code of conduct for NGOs operating in the waters. Charities and NGOs say that would make it more difficult to help those fleeing war and people looking for a better life in Europe. The United Nations said it needed more help dealing with the crisis. 3,000 people were expected to arrive into different Italian ports later in the day.
11 people, including 2 children, have been killed at a birthday party in Mexico. Masked men burst into the event being held in a tent outside the host's home in the city of Tizayuca in central Hidalgo state. Police found 4 children alive, but the other victims have been stabbed to death. Mexico has recently seen a surge in violence linked to disputes between drug cartels, but Hidalgo had largely been spared such violence. In May alone, over 2,000 killings are recorded across the country, approximately 70 a day.
Now, with new details about that tragic accident at a popular tourist site, a woman killed on the beach in St. Martin watching a jet take off from an airport that was just steps away.
The Caribbean hotspot of St. Martin may be just as well known for its airport as its beautiful beaches.
We're ready to do it, baby!
Tourist after tourist waiting at the end of the runway to feel that blast from massive jet engines as the planes take off.
Hey, free dermabrasion, we loved it.
But this morning, that thrill is what cost a 57-year-old woman her life. The New Zealand tourist holding onto the fence on Wednesday, just like so many others have done. But when the plane's engines fired, she lost her grip and was thrown into a concrete retaining wall, the impact killing her. The danger seen in this video from 2012. The jet blast tossing this woman like a rag doll into the concrete barrier. She was injured but survived.
There are safe ways to spot the planes in the area. There's 2 bars adjacent. There's a very large beach. I think sometimes it is a situation where some people might not be aware of the power that the engines might have.
That power, massive. The force created by a 737's engine, stronger than winds of a Category 5 hurricane. Just listen to that deafening sound. But even with large signs warning of the dangers, so many attempted anyway. Officials there say this is the first death, but do acknowledge there have been a number of injuries over the years.
Traffic getting a bit messy after a truck filled with eels, live eels, crashes and overturns on a major highway in Oregon. You can see hundreds of these slime eels sliding down the road in a thick white goo. We're told the truck driver hit his brakes to avoid a construction zone and then crashed, causing a 4-car pileup and leaving several cars covered in slippery slime.
Next to the severe storms hitting at this hour from Philadelphia to New York up into New England, already a state of emergency in Wisconsin. Flash flooding and rivers at record levels there. The National Guard called in. Roads underwater across several states after half a foot of rain. ABC's Alex Perez from the storm zone tonight.
Tonight, drivers caught in flash floods from Ohio to New York. In Buffalo, firefighters pushing this car to dry land.
We're coming upon them and pushing them out, but we're trying to cut off everything right now.
Parts of the Midwest reeling. Half a foot of rain in just hours Wednesday north of Chicago. Floodwaters busting through a basement window, racing into this Wisconsin home. The governor declaring a state of emergency on scene today.
For something this big, it's remarkable that not only is there not a fatality, but that there hasn't been serious injury.
Across the border in Gurnee, Illinois, floodwaters rising, fish swimming in the streets. Residents racing to fill sandbags to protect their town from what could be record flooding. More than 100 homes and businesses already damaged. And David, here in Burlington, Wisconsin, residents are desperate for the water to recede. Take a look from above. With help from our drone, you can see in some areas the streets and the river have become one, and the river here expected to be at major flood stage through Saturday.
There have been spectacular storms across China, bringing some relief from days of scorching summer heat. For several hours, lightning lit up the Beijing skies and also struck several areas on the ground. Gale force winds also wreaked havoc. Doors at Chunlixu railway station were smashed and some passengers were blown off their feet. In other parts of the city, some onlookers kept their cool as a rooftop object fell at their feet while they filmed the thunderstorm. The heavy rainfall, which lasted about 2 hours, also caused severe travel disruption in Beijing, a number of power outages, and left many streets submerged.
The European Commission is seeking a court order to stop Poland from logging in the ancient Biała Wieża forest. The old-growth forest is one of the last and largest parts of an ancient forest that used to stretch across Europe. Located on Poland's eastern border with Belarus, the UNESCO World Heritage Site covers more than 1,400 square kilometers and is home to several unique species. The Polish government tripled logging activity in the forest last year, a move it said is needed to help contain a bark beetle outbreak. But the European Commission, as well as environmental groups, said logging threatens the unique site and the species living there. According to Reuters, the EU Environment Minister said July 13th, quote, "The Commission is requesting the court for interim measures compelling Poland to suspend the works immediately." It's unclear if the court will rule before it breaks for the summer on July 21st.
Hidden under hectares of Dutch farmland lies one of the world's largest gas reserves, providing 1/10 of Shell and ExxonMobil's total output, and an important source of income for the Dutch government. Until the earthquakes started 2 decades ago. Lawsuits were filed and the Dutch natural gas company NAM, jointly owned by Shell and ExxonMobil, was forced to pay millions of euros in compensation. Some residents had no choice but to move out of the area. Boukje Wierda and her husband Ebe Treffers left their house when dangerous cracks appeared after a series of earthquakes. NAM is paying for the reconstruction.
It's a very hard struggle to NAM and also to the government, because I think the government has a responsibility in this, and they didn't take the responsibility. They just left the Groningers to themselves.
The largest earthquake was magnitude 3.6, but even small tremors caused damage because the gas fields lie only 3 kilometers below the surface, and the clay-like soil in Groningen is soft.
I heard a sort of train going through my little village. It was very scary.
After a public outcry and several court decisions, the Dutch government halved gas production. But residents and organizations are demanding another decrease at the Council of State in The Hague.
Maar wij zijn dus heel erg bang.
We're very afraid that it will take a heavy earthquake with casualties before they take action, before they really reduce gas production.
France, Belgium and Germany are main importers of Dutch gas, but since a reduction of output, the Netherlands has seen its economy drop by 0.5%. Europe's largest natural gas field here in Groningen province has contributed for decades in a major way to the wealth here in the Netherlands. The country's comprehensive social security system has partially been built with money from gas. But now people here in Groningen say that this era should come to an end as soon as possible.
On Thursday, scientists from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released their annual algae forecast for the Great Lakes, announcing that a significant harmful algae bloom is expected to form this summer in western Lake Erie. Scientists, however, were quick to point out that the expected bloom would not be as large as previous formations, which have posed health risks and hampered tourism. In recent years, massive algae formations have become a recurring threat to the environment and the economy, with toxic contamination from a 2014 bloom causing a 2-day shutdown of tap water systems for over 400,000 people in Toledo, Ohio, and southeastern Michigan.
The Oregon legislature has passed a controversial bill that would keep first-time offenders caught with limited amounts of certain drugs from facing heavy sentences or fines. The bill would see user-level amounts of heroin, cocaine, and meth charged as misdemeanors rather than felonies, and to replace jail time with treatment. The legislature passed the bill July 6th. According to the Washington Post, Senator Jackie Winters, a supporter of the bill, said, quote, "We are trying to move policy towards treatment. We can't continue on the path of building more prisons when often the underlying root cause of the crime is substance use." Senator Betsy Johnson voted against the bill, saying it represents a, quote, hug-a-thug policy. If signed into law, the bill would also require law enforcement to collect data on the age, ethnicity, race, and sex of people officers contact and stops. The bill will next go to Governor Kate Brown for approval.
Former President Jimmy Carter has been hospitalized for dehydration. The former president was in Canada working on a construction project for Habitat for Humanity when he started to feel woozy. His spokeswoman says he was taken to a hospital as a precaution and is expected to be fine. One reporter on the scene tweeted, quote, "It's quite hot here," and Carter had been working on the house for about 90 minutes in the sun. She also said that Carter was sitting up when paramedics arrived to attend to him and that he did pass along the message that he is okay.